Morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Steve, for the introduction and invitation to speak here today. I'm going to be talking today about the number one HR development problem. And I misspoke, actually, when I called it a problem, because it's more like an issue. If we think about a problem, it's usually something that we construct in front of ourselves, like a Rubik's Cube, and you go through a few steps and you solve the problem. Well, this is more an ongoing challenge. And it's the most important, I'm totally convinced. And what I want to talk to you about is how our company first used COVID to paper over a solution to a piece of the problem, and then COVID, unfortunately, inspired us to really take action. So, has anybody ever seen this book, Innovator's Dilemma? Or is anybody, yeah, you've read it. Isn't it good? It's really a classic. And has anybody else heard of the term disruptive technology or disruptive solution? Have you ever heard people talk about disrupting the market? Has anybody ever heard that? Yeah. Raise your hand if you have. Oh, just about everybody. It actually came from that book. The book was written by a Harvard professor, Clayton Christensen, about 25 years ago. He talked about this fundamental tension that exists in a good company. As a company gets more and more successful, obviously it seeks to be responsive to its customers. But there's a kind of dilemma associated with that. There's a kind of tension associated with that. It's like Shakespeare said in one of his sonnets, "Consumed by that, we were nourished by." And interestingly, if what you do is pay attention too much to your customers, but are not paying attention to what is going to potentially disrupt your organization in the way of innovation, you're going to be disrupted. So the choice comes down to being either a disruptor or to be disrupted. And that all pivots around innovation. But what he didn't talk about, and what we've been thinking about, is what is behind innovation. What is behind innovation in a business? Innovation for existing customers, called incremental innovation by Clayton Christensen, or disruptive innovations are the things that change the world, for example, AI. What are behind these things in an organization? And why is it the case that a small company of 3 or 4 or 5 people can be a world beater and take on a big established organization? What is going on? What is the engine of motivation that's happening? He didn't talk about that. But that's what the nugget is behind the most important HR problem that all of us have, which is how to motivate people to buy in. Like John Wooden, the famed Hall of Fame UCLA coach, said, "Hey, we do thousands of skills on the basketball court to win a game. But the most important thing we can have is understanding the overarching vision of the game. Most important thing we can have." And so, interestingly, not only is it a problem, behind motivation, by the way, of course, behind that backs up innovation, is connectedness. Connectedness to the mission, connectedness to the vision. You've got to have that in an organization if you want to be the disruptor and not the disrupted. And we have, obviously, this macro disruption in the form of COVID, which, as the Surgeon General has alerted us, is costing businesses $154 billion a year because of loneliness, disconnectedness. So I was aware of this problem. Like this woman, I read the book, Innovator's Dilemma. I'm a person with over 30 patents. I pay a lot of attention to innovation, but as our company's growing, things have changed. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story. One of the gentlemen here said a good way to connect to folks is to tell a story. Well, I've got a story for you. I'm going to tell you a story about how we got to our approach to dealing with this important, critical issue. And it kind of starts with an old classic, Stairway to Heaven, right? She is buying a stairway to heaven. Okay? Well, Robert Plant just said, keep your job, buddy. But anyway, there's how many folks in here are fellow CEOs? Anybody else in here a CEO? Okay, we have a couple. But this is good advice for you because you're all going to be CEOs anyway eventually, right? Okay? So the advice is that there is something called, obviously, Stairway to Heaven, but there's also something called the doorway to disdain, okay? Now, the doorway to disdain for a CEO is when I come up here, or I go anywhere, and I try to share about my problems. Oh, boo-hoo, oh, you're a CEO. Well, what color are you going to paint your vacation home, right? Or which ringside seats are you going to have for the NBA Finals, right? That's the presumption that people make with respect to the problems of a CEO. So don't go there. Don't go through the doorway of disdain, right? But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going through the doorway of disdain, and I'm going to tell you about a problem that I had. Now, when our company was small, when we had 10 people, it was kind of cool because we got to move into our first really kind of posh office. We moved to the 15th floor. There was this little carve-out space along the north window in Portland, Oregon, on one of the office towers. And that was a carve-out because the best places on the windows of any of these downtown office buildings is the east, looking at Mount Hood, really beautiful. Looking to the south, to the sunshine. Looking to the West Hills. The north is, okay, little carve-out, but it's still looking out to the beautiful city. So what we did is we had 10 or 12 people. We were kind of like in a bowling alley of a little space, but we put what are called relights in between each office. So each one of us could see each other, right? It wasn't like a fish tank where it was a full on-walled glass, but there was a pane of window through which I could see all the way that way, all the way that way. Everybody could see everybody. Okay, but we had our own privacy. What a great layout. We didn't have to worry about connectedness. We knew everybody's name. Okay, but move ahead now to the situation we've got. Well, just, how does this work? Oh, well, anyway, we're now in a taller office tower, right? Taller office tower, we've got 3 floors. Who needs them during COVID? Because we're also hybrid, right? So we have subletters and so on. But here's the CEO problem I had. I'd be going up the elevator before COVID, and sure enough, once a week, somebody would say, "Oh, hi, Jim. How was your weekend?" And they know me, but I don't know them. And I'm supposed to know them because they work at my frickin' company. Come on. So how do I solve this problem? Again and again. And I tried different ways. I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just admit that I don't know your name. And so I tried that. Be forthright. Oh, hi, Bill, or what is your name? I forgot. And of course, the embarrassing thing was when they said, well, you interviewed me about 10 years ago, and I work in so and so. Oh, that's right, of course. So I set out earnestly to try to solve this problem before COVID. Sat down with the HR manager. I said, let's go through the inventory, the company directory. Let's look at the photographs, and you help me with these 140 folks as to what they do and so on, right? And so I practiced that, and I got pretty good at the different ways in which you'd stumble. Of course, sometimes the name didn't, or the real person didn't match up with the picture. Here's a picture of me. That's a pretty good-looking picture. The trouble is, in the directory, that's what we do. We pick our best picture, you see. So when you see the real person like me, you think, oh, wait a minute, is this really the same dude? Not quite. So I realized I had this connectedness problem, and I knew that this was foundational to motivation and buy-in. So how am I going to solve it? Well, it really became clear to me. One of the guys in the company I knew for a long, long time, worked at the company for 20 years. My friend, I'll call him Sam. During COVID, Sam, extreme skier, one of the first guys to buy what are called twin tips. He did aerials, all this other good stuff. And he joked about how his bionic knee, or his knee replacement, was better than his quote-unquote real knee. Sam is dead. He killed himself from loneliness. And when that happened, I realized, my God, this isn't just my problem. Now, I'm not connected to people here as like I should be or I could be, but what about everybody else? We have to figure this out. We have to figure out some way to bring our people together. Not just for motivation, not just for innovation, but just for decency. Decency as people, as an organization. Now, one of the things that we've done as a corporation, we are the world leader in scheduling software. That's how this company started. We wrote the patents for applying to college over the web. The modern methods for applying to college are actually, if you go to the Universal Forms Engine patents 1997, that's us. That's become a kind of commodity market. But from those admissions application forms like the lady talked about, we realized that's not the whole person. The whole person, we have video, we have supercomputing, we have ways in which to express efficiently the whole individual. And so we've become a leader in career services at institutions, including the University of Utah. They use our standout services, what we call the Intelligent Mirror. It's a video platform that allows you to practice how you come across. It has AI, it does a concordance of your words to see how understandable your English is, whether you use fillers like like, I'm like, she's like, and all this other garbage that doesn't get you a job. So you're able to learn and improve the way you come across. And so doing this in video, well, wait a minute, we also do interviewing. For Yale University, for example, their transfer students go through our interviewing platform, asynchronous. So they produce a script of questions. The president of the university might ask the first question, admissions director might ask the second question, student might ask the third question, and so on. And they submit this to thousands of students who can then answer asynchronously on their own schedule. So you don't have to schedule the interviews. It's really cool. The California State University Chancellor's Office uses the same system for its executive hiring. Makes it much more efficient. So here we are. We have some nugget here. We have interviewing. And we also have made it available to the public, standout.com. You can go there, $29 a month, practice how you come across in the same way that these students do to improve your public speaking, improve your way of explaining your ideas, and so on. You can choose different career categories and so on. So, how do I solve this problem for Sam? Our people sat around the table. We said, wait a minute. What we could do is we could have an interview in our own company for the existing employees. I know what we could do. We could not only publish that script, we could have a competition. We could provide some prizes. And in our case, what we do is we top 3 winners make $1,000, $500, or $250 on your next paycheck. And it's all peer voted. And we've tried this and it's really working. And that's why I'm here, because another good idea that came out of the focus ring was, why don't we start making this available to other companies? So this is called focus ring. And what happens is when you ask questions, what you're really doing is you're telling people what you value. You don't ask a question about something you don't care about, right? So if the company cares about things like innovation, if the company cares about buy-in, if the company cares about motivation, if the company cares about the work that you're doing, ask those questions. And that's exactly what we're doing. And then, here's the pro-social skills that are very interesting. Because when you have to answer a question, indeed, that's a skill. It's an explanatory skill. It's an articulation skill. But when you look at the answers, in our case, the focus ring, each person who's participating must evaluate the response scripts of 6 other individuals. Well, you get to see how they answered the same question, and you get to learn from them, and you get to exercise the very important pro-social skill of listening, of evaluating what somebody else has said and judging it. You get all of these pro-social skills building from this focus ring experience. That's why we're doing it. So, one of the key elements that we're asking about is also from another Harvard psychologist. Well, actually, Christensen's a Harvard MBA guy, a business school. This is Daniel Gilbert, Harvard psychologist. He wrote this really great book called Stumbling on Happiness. Anybody ever read this book? Oh, this is a good one, too. You got to check it out. I saw a lady raise her hand back there. It's a really good book. He talks about happiness doesn't necessarily come from the things people expect they would. Oh, I'm rich or I'm famous. No. It's actually got to do with things like mastery. It also has to do, as he discovered, he wanted to find out at the time he wrote the book. He went to a Syrian refugee camp with his fellow researchers to determine whether the level of happiness in that destitute camp was lower, as you'd expect, than it would be in a modern society, or a modern city like Salt Lake City. They found, not unsurprisingly, that yes, it is lower. But they also found this very surprising thing, that there were some people who were really happy, a lot happier than many people in Salt Lake City. And they were happier because they mattered. They were the people who knew they had to get up and they had to help other people. He also alluded to that paradox here. The greatest joy you can feel, you know this as parents, is to give to that child. That's the most beautiful thing. It's like I call it the Papa Bear hormone, you know what I mean? It's the best rush there is. And so to matter to other people is really important with respect to happiness. Another very important criterion for happiness is mastery. We get thrilled and success from performing our own job better, learning through our own job. But quite often we can do that, particularly in the COVID era, the hybrid era. Nobody hears about it. I have some great idea, I have some innovation, I have some cool way of doing the tasks that I'm assigned to do, but I don't get to tell anybody, or I tell one or two people. Well, what if a lot more people in the company got to learn from my learning and metaphorically could potentially learn themselves a better way to do their task? Because obviously, if you're a better writer, well, writing occurs in all sorts of disciplines within a corporation or an organization. So if there's some trick to writing, for example, one of the things that was pointed out in one of our focus ring was the great Norman Mailer said the two keys to great writing are writing and rewriting, okay? And so a lot of us think, well, when we have to rewrite things, that's because we're no good. No, it's because that's the essence, the willingness to redo work and tricks on how to rewrite effectively. So that's now spreading through our company. It's a really useful thing. So here are some of the questions that we're asking in our focus ring. Again, we stage the script. Our HR director asks the questions. 1, what have you figured out, learned, or discovered in your work that you think others might be interested in knowing about? Simple question. So here's your chance to talk about that special kind of Java code that you wrote that you thought was a good trick with respect to using XYZ widgets. Or in the case of what I described with respect to the Norman Mailer anecdote. Another good one, we actually talked about this good one about Norman Mailer, and somebody said, hey, do you know about William Faulkner? William Faulkner said, kill your darlings. Okay, great writer. Well, what he meant is the same thing. You get wedded to your characters, you get wedded to your ideas. You got to be willing to throw them out sometimes to make the end product better. So what kinds of things have you discovered? Second, how do you think the work you're doing matters? This is this point from the Syrian refugee camp. How do you think your work matters to others in this company? And then reciprocally, can you recall what somebody else at CollegeNet did for you that you really enjoyed or appreciated? And this has created a lot of recognition because obviously as managers now we can take the best videos and spread them to the whole company. And then finally, is there something you've done for someone else at CollegeNet that you're proud of? Now, a very interesting aspect of Focus Ring 2 that we haven't used yet at CollegeNet, but we are going to use it, is the fact that in addition to peer scoring the other response scripts, you can also score them according to subjective vectors, such as this person's a good explainer, or this person has a lot of product knowledge. Imagine the XYZ graph here. I've turned it around here. This is the Y, this is the X. Somebody's a good explainer, somebody's got great product knowledge. And you can imagine the dots on that graph. In the upper right corner are your folks who have a lot of product knowledge who are good explainers. Well, what if a tech person is in that quadrant of that graph? Maybe there's an opportunity for them to assist in sales. So there's all these possibilities open for us. We're very excited about it. Thank you so much for your attention.